Oh, now we're live.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, I was getting ready to sit there and click the thing again. Okay, I wasn't prepared for being live, so. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to the Inspire View Series 2016. My name is Cherrise Boucher of CherriseBoucher.com, and I'm a women's reinvention specialist, life coach, and energy healer. I'm so excited to be going into the second year with this series. And my mission for it has been really for every woman on this planet of ours to fully connect with her genuine self, to listen to her heart, and to follow her dreams. And if for some reason that true self gets lost for a bit, like it does, especially if you're a mom, the importance of reconnecting with her. And often when we're looking for that reconnection, we get inspiration from others. And that is what part of this series is about. The women that I've had the honor of connecting with over the past year have all been really, truly genuine, beautiful souls who have followed their hearts and are living their passions. And their stories have inspired me so much that I think that's part of the reason why I've continued doing this series, because I love connecting with them. And there are common threads in all of our lives. And the more I listen to their stories and share experiences with them, the more I see those commonalities. And it's just awesome, really. So I'm continuing to do it. And this year offering some live workshops thrown in there too, which is fun. That's a whole different aspect of this. So today I want to introduce you to Patricia Talavera. She is one half of the genius duo behind SYT Biz. She helps women entrepreneurs play in their zone of genius. She frees up their time by taking over the web design piece of their biz so they don't have to stress over something they don't know. And I know many of us can relate to that. This gives her clients the chance to finally implement those big ideas that they've been dreaming about. And Patricia's earned her master's degree in organizational psychology, so we'll get around to all that. But decided to start a business so she could do the work she loves while having the flexibility to put her family first. And I think that's a common thread too among a lot of people. So hello, Patricia. Thank you so much for being here through technology glitches and such. And life
Thanks
glitches.
for having me. Yeah, that too.
Technology, whatever. It took us a little while to get to this point, but here we are. So could you just share a little bit, because since I mentioned that you come from a psychology background and that's what you went to school for. So tell us a little bit about the journey that led you to where you are now.
So I did go to school for psychology. My undergrad was actually in psychology. And then I got to my final semester and I was like, do I want to keep going to school or do I want to go make some money? Because with a bachelor's degree in psychology, there's really not much that you can do. You basically have to have a master's or a PhD or a PsyD in order to really work in the field. So I was like, you know what? I've been in school for like 5.5 years. I'm going to go get a job and kind of see where things go. So I accepted a corporate job before I even graduated. And like a year into it, it was just so stressful and I was burnt out. And I was like, you know what? I'm too young to be burnt out and divorced. So right. I'm going to find something else to do with my life. So I decided to quit that job and take another job that made less money but had more flexibility. And then that job ended and I decided, okay, we'll start a business. And then life kind of happened and I debated going into the Air Force. I took the officer's test and everything, didn't make it through the final round and thought, maybe I'll get my master's degree, make myself a stronger candidate, and then come back. And plus, when you have a degree, you start off with more credit anyway. So it's not like it would have been a waste of 2 years.
Right.
And then during grad school, I got pregnant and I was like, nope, can't do it. Can't sign up, knowing I have a kid. So I was like, you know what? I guess it's a sign. I'll just do my original plan and work this business with my sister and really get that to a place where it can support me and my family and put everything I have into it. So now I take basically everything I learned in my master's and apply it to my own business. So it's not like it was a waste.
Right, right. I love that too because that happens a lot. People, it seems like I've got a restaurant background. I went to college for interior design. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces of our lives that end up like in weird ways. It'll pop up in
Yeah.
whatever you're doing now. So it's
Yeah.
never wasted, never wasted.
No, it's a lot of learning, and I've actually only held a couple of jobs like in my life, but I always saw a pattern happening in each of those jobs. And when I did my master's degree and I was learning all that stuff, I'm like, oh, I can see why all these problems are happening in all these places, and those are the kind of problems I want to avoid in my own company. So, I mean, it was still a good learning experience no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great that gave you the background to recognize it before it happens.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
for
you
sure.
put that to use with clients too. You probably can pick out
Yeah.
things and you're like, oh wait, let me just share this with you.
Yeah, yeah, I help when I can. And it's always easier to come up with stuff for other people than it is for yourself. Like I just had a client of mine come to me and tell me that she wanted to make some changes in her business. I'm like, "Oh, you should do this and this and this and this." Okay, I'm gonna redo your website. It'll be done in a few days. And then we're gonna do all this other stuff for you. But it's just easier for me to come up with ideas for other people than it is for myself. But I
I
think that's
know.
how it is for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's much easier. Like I love to organize stuff and basically, get shit done. And it's so much easier for me to do that for others than it is for myself.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, seriously.
That's why doctors aren't their own doctors,
Yeah,
that's how
that's
that
true.
works.
That
Yeah.
is true. Sometimes you just need to bring someone else in.
And
That's true.
hairdressers don't cut their own hair.
Yeah.
So, right?
Or well, they probably shouldn't anyway.
Well, yeah, if they do, I don't know how they get to the back, but it'd be
I
interesting,
guess you'd be really good if you can manage that.
right? Yeah. I wonder, that's something to Google, right? Off topic. Anyway, so tell me about what is Operation SYT Launch and why did you create it?
So Operation SYT Launch is my passion project. It is discounted websites for military people affiliated with the military, so veterans, their spouses, or honestly, we're not that picky. If it's like your son or your daughter or whatever, like it's fine as long as you have some kind of connection to the military community. That's fine with us. And the thing was that me and my sister we started attending this luncheon for people who are kind of transitioning out of the service. Like some of them are wanting to be entrepreneurs, some of them are just trying to get a regular job. So it's like a mix of people, but it's just helping them with different skills. And they hear from like different business owners and stuff like that about how they transitioned out of the military. And me and my sister just did a seminar on like all the things we've learned in the last 5 years of our business. But so we wanted to give back because my sister and her husband got out of active duty. I think it's been like 2.5 years now. And the support that they've gotten from the community has just been massive. And so we just want to be able to give something back. And I'm like, okay, well, I know that when you're starting out, a big expensive website is not generally in your budget, but I honestly believe all businesses should have a website. Like you need somewhere to send people when they ask for
Right.
more information. So we're like, okay, well, so let's create a very basic website that still gets all the information that they need out there, like a home page, their services, an about them page, and a contact page, stuff like that, like very basic stuff so we can knock out a bunch of them because they're so simple, but that's how we can afford to give it to them for like 1/10 of what we charge for our
Right.
regular websites because there's a lot less design work that goes into it. So it's not as we can knock them out a lot faster, but they're still going to have something that looks professional. It's just not custom. And then later when they have the money and the clarity and all that other stuff, then they can pay to us or whoever they want to upgrade it, and that's fine. But at least for now it gets them on on the track, and it gets them started with WordPress. Because when people are like, oh, I'll just build my own website on GoDaddy, I'm like, don't do that. Or Yahoo Builder or Wix or Weebly or whatever. I'm like, if you don't own your website, that's a problem, because it doesn't matter how much traffic you have. If they decide to shut you down, you're out of luck. So why would you let somebody else own your stuff? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I've had people that are like, oh, but I bought my domain name. Did you? Or did they tell you you pay them and they own it? Because now you can't move it even if you wanted to, because they own it. So
Mm.
it's just better to start them out from the beginning. Like, here's your hosting, here's your domain, and it's all your stuff. And if you decide to change it later, you can change it later. Again, with us or with somebody else. No hurt feelings if you don't hire us again. But at least it's enough to kind of get them started, and it's our way of giving back to the community.
That's awesome. I think that's fantastic. Have you had a lot of people take you up on that offer?
Not yet, because we launched it last year, but we haven't really had a chance. Like, we've had so much going on, we haven't really had a chance to promote it yet. Although we had our seminar that we did a couple weeks ago, that's been promoted on the organization's website, as well as a couple of other lists. So there's no saying that that won't start bringing some stuff in. And we're getting ready to start advertising it on like mommy blogs that are geared towards military spouses. So we're hoping that kind of helps get the word out there too.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We didn't even cover this when we like talked the other day. So this is new to me. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and we still go to those events. They're twice a month, and so we're gonna start going there to start connecting with people to see who we can help out there too. Because we just want to help. We have a goal to do 50 this year, so
Fantastic.
we have to go find those 50 people.
They're there for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they're there. And then on top of that, we really obviously want to help as many people, but we also donate half of the money to an organization. So we want to be able to make that donation. So it's kind of like multiple reasons why we really want to build these sites, because it feels like a win-win-win for everybody involved. So we just need to find those 50 people first.
That's fantastic. Really fantastic. So how do you balance marketing your business with marketing your passion project?
Well, it hasn't been very balanced so far, but that's what we're trying to do now. Like, we've been like I said, we've been mostly focused on our business, but I mean, now we're kind of trying to get a little bit more involved. Like, we're going to more and more of these events, and we're going to try to sponsor some events too. And, we're going to start doing the advertising specifically for it, and just kind of see how that goes. I mean, the thing is, most of our clients have been through relationship building. So it's just about getting out there and getting seen by more people. And then, whatever of our services is a good fit for them, then it might be a good fit for them. Maybe, maybe not. So, I mean, the thing is that it is a very simple website. But if somebody were to come to me and said, okay, I want to work with you, but I need a more custom website, then we're still willing to work with them on a sliding scale, because it's still we still consider it a part of Operation SYT Launch. So
awesome. That's good to know. That's fantastic. There was just something that flew into my head. Oh, so grassroots, that's really like how you've been, like I'm hearing a lot about that lately, and making sure that as entrepreneurs that you're not just visible just online, but you're actually like out in your community and talking to people around you so they get to know you. So it seems like you and your sister really do that. And did you have any fears or doubts about doing that? Because a lot of people have a fear of like getting in front of people and sharing their stuff.
Well, we tried it a couple of years ago, and it didn't really work out very well, because it seemed like the people that we were meeting were mostly about helping themselves or trying to sell to you than anything else. And so we stopped doing it for a while. But now that we've connected with an organization like 100 Entrepreneurs that holds these different events every month, then we go to those and connect with those people. And, the Wounded Warrior Project, which is one of the organizations that we really want to donate to, because they've been super supportive of my sister and her husband, and they give us free stuff like this jacket that I'm wearing. So, we really want to be able to give back to them. and they actually have a lot of events. So we've been showing up to those too, like the service events, and sometimes they're fun events, and sometimes they're just, we're trying to figure out how we can work with them to host something. But they're a bigger organization. Unlike 100 Entrepreneurs, I already met the guy who runs it because it's a small organization. Wounded Warrior is a national organization, so it's a little bit harder to get in the door. So, but it is on our wish list to be able to like sponsor a project for them this year, to be able to help however we can. Even if, I mean, they already have a kick-ass website, so I can't really help with that. Otherwise, I would have totally offered them that already. So it's just trying to help out as much as we can, and connecting with the people and providing whatever support we can give back, because we're just so grateful for everything they've done for us so far.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the really going out there, because it really is, doesn't seem like to you guys, but I know for a lot of other entrepreneurs, and myself included, I mean, there's some sort of reservation about going out there and sharing what you do confidently, so that you attract the right people in person.
Oh yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And I mean, people are like, I was having this discussion with somebody the other day, and she was like, "Oh, so you must have like a lot of confidence." I'm like, "No, I don't." I was like, it helps that they're really nice people, right? That, a lot of the people that we've met have just been really supportive and, really about helping their community. And it's easy to talk to them, you know what I mean? But I can understand that going to certain events, like the ones I used to go to before, are very nerve-wracking because you don't know what to expect, and it kind of seems like people are more about themselves than about you, and it's just a whole lot of hurdles to jump through, which is why I stopped doing events for a while, and now really we focus our events on like military-affiliated ones and other stuff in the community rather than business related stuff, because I feel like if you can connect with somebody on a personal level, you never know when they'll come back around, when they know somebody or they know somebody that knows somebody. So that's kind of how we go to these events. It's just with the intention of meeting people and trying to be helpful. And if it pays off, it does. If it doesn't, whatever.
Yeah. I think
it might pay off tomorrow. It might pay off tomorrow. Might pay off 6 months from now. So
exactly. Like you never know.
And that's what I try to impress on people. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I've had people that I didn't talk to for months come back and suddenly say, I want to work with you. Or I've had people come to me and say, so-and-so told me about you. I'm ready to work with you, like now. Just tell me where to sign on the dotted line. So, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, well, you can't afford my services. I can't talk to you right now. Like, because you never know when that person's going to come back or when they're going to refer somebody who can afford you your way. So I'm just a big believer in, helping people and building relationships. And one way or another, it's going to come back.
That's right. I totally agree. Totally agree. You never know. You just got to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because I think some people, or I've heard about it, they put like one thing out there and there's no bites, and they just like take it so personally. And I don't think that's how it works. I mean, you always have to cast your line a few times before a fish bites, right? So
yeah,
I think,
and it takes time. It really does take time, because we get a lot of our clients on Facebook, but with that one community where I have people referring people to me, it's been like 2 years in the making of me showing up like practically every day and helping somebody or posting something. Like, it takes a lot of showing up for people to really see you as like a resource and as a go-to person. So that kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. But I think it's just really frustrating. And I was having this conversation with somebody a couple days ago, that when you see all these people like, oh, you can make this much money in this many days. Oh, I blew up my business overnight. And I'm just like, that really doesn't help anybody. You know that, right? Because the odds that they can replicate that for you, if it's even true for them, it's like slim to none. Unless you're working with the exact same people, with the exact same skill set, offering the exact same thing, the odds that they can replicate their results for you are like almost nil. And that's if they even have those results. Because I've also had experiences with people that are like, oh, you should work with me because I've got it all figured out. And then a few months later, they're like, oh, a few months ago, I was broke. Wait, what? You told me you had everything figured out. What do you mean you were broke? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that going around too, I think. And
There
that's really
is.
frustrating. And I think that's what leads people to kind of have, start doubting themselves when things don't work out because they're like, but this person said they did it and I did exactly what they did. What's wrong with me? Why can't I make it happen? When in reality, it's just that some of those people are lying. I
Right.
mean, some of them are better than you, some of them are lying. So the problem is that you don't know which one's which.
Well, and I think the thing is that those people have probably actually been in business for a very long time.
Yeah.
And whatever is now working for them may be something new, like a new niche or a new product that
But they had
has
a lot
made,
more going into it.
right. Like it could be 10 years that they've been in business before this one
Yeah.
thing actually, really took off for them. And I think that the
Hmm.
misleading sometimes, and maybe there are
Yeah.
people who just come out of the gate, and bam, there they
But
are.
that's
But
rare. I think that's really rare. Yeah, there was somebody else who was like, I doubled, I made my corporate income in freelancing in like 45 days. She was like, but in reality, all that was building up from like the last 5 years. So I didn't
right,
do it in 3 months. I did it in 5 years and 3 months because I was building those connections and sharpening my skills and trying things that didn't work so that when I became a full-time freelancer, boom, I already had a product that I knew people wanted. I already knew how I wanted to market myself. I already had people who were following my work. She was like, but it didn't actually happen in 3 months. But I think there are people that will lie to you and say, oh, it took 3 months when you're like, no, it didn't. It took you all that time beforehand that you're just
exactly,
choosing to conveniently ignore. But that's not how it works, you know. But I
right.
think that yeah, some people are misleading about that. They act like it came out of nowhere when in reality they were busting their butts for like ever and getting no results, and then they found that one thing, and now it's working. But that doesn't change the fact that all of this had to come first, you know.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's super important for people to recognize, because we do tend to compare ourselves to
Mm,
others in similar
yeah,
industries, or even not similar industries, but just being an entrepreneur in general.
yeah,
And you start, it'll make you feel bad that you're not really kicking ass in that like they are, but we don't
yeah,
know their story unless there's somebody who's very genuine and
yeah,
really wants to share their own knowledge. And I do know people like that. And
yeah.
those are the people I really connect with too, because you're like,
Yeah,
okay, like I get this. Like we all go through shit to
to get
build
here.
businesses and to get where you're going. And it's not an overnight thing. It's something you definitely have to build on.
Yeah, yeah, and I totally agree because me and my sister started out 5 years ago doing websites for like no money because we were out of our freaking minds, and then we tried other stuff that didn't work, and then we kind of centered back to doing websites. But we were doing kind of like the technical work, but then later we were like, we don't really want to do those little tinkering projects. We want to focus on like big brand redesigns and like the strategy and all that other stuff. So then we repackaged our stuff and redid our website and finally hired a copywriter because my words suck. And it's been getting better, but the only issue now is like, okay, so we've kind of figured out who we want to work with and all that other stuff, and so now it's just kind of about being more consistent with showing up because it's really easy to kind of get off track when you have so much going on in your personal life, which we've had like since we started this business, we've added 3 kids into the mix. So it's a lot of stuff going on. 3 kids in the mix, plus moving, plus my husband leaving his job of 7 years or some crazy
Wow.
number like that. So we've had a lot going on in our lives. It just always feels like something's happening. You know
Right.
what I mean? But so it's just about making a plan and then sticking to that plan, and eventually the results will come. I mean, they have to. You stick to something long enough, it has to work eventually because you won't
Exactly.
allow for any other outcome than for it to work out. So that's kind of how we're approaching it now. Although you just kind of have to be realistic about what can happen in any given day. So that's why we're like, okay, well, we're going to make 2 lists. This is an ideal day list when everything's going right. this is a bare minimum list that we're gonna do on the days things are not going right. And we're just gonna start living our life that way because it's like sometimes you have to admit you don't have as much time or you're not feeling well. And if you try to push through that, it only takes longer for you to heal, and then everything's kind of half done, and then it's not really productive anyway. So I think it's gonna be kind of really helpful to just admit that some days are gonna be bare minimum, and these are the days when we're gonna do more than bare minimum, and that's what this is gonna look like.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great approach to it, the two lists. Yeah.
We're gonna do that with our home life too.
Right.
We'll see how that works out.
So did your sister and you come build this from scratch like together, or did one of you start it first and then the other one came in? How did that
Actually,
relationship develop?
the funny thing is that when I first quit my job, or when my job first ended and I decided to go into business, it was me, my twin sister, and two of our other sisters that were working together. But then me and Lily ended up going our separate ways from our two sisters. And so it's been me and Lily for like the last 5 years since that
Oh,
split happened. Since like we've had multiple iterations of our business, but it's been me and Lily. And then my husband came on board. Like he was doing little stuff for us because he's a graphic designer. He's been one for like 10 plus years or something like that.
mhm.
But it was only like a couple of months ago to like maybe less than a year where we really brought him on board to start doing things more regularly for us. So he's behind all of our market, all of our like logos, the branding, everything, and he's behind all the stuff for our clients too.
Oh, fantastic. It's a whole family affair.
Yeah.
And swapping kids off in between, I'm sure. So
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's what we do. Like I work a lot here at my sister's house because it's just easier for us to work together. So sometimes I'll sleep here and I'll leave my daughter with my husband, and sometimes she'll sleep here with me. So it's a lot of moving back and forth and just trying to keep all the pieces on afloat.
yeah, I'm sure. But I think that's why you wanted to do this business too, was so that you would have that flexibility for family things.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to be able to put my family first because when I was working that corporate job, I was making more money than I would have thought coming out of college for sure. But I didn't like the person I was becoming, and I didn't like the fact that my work essentially expected me to put work first to the detriment of my health and to the detriment of my marriage. And I didn't think that was okay. I'm like, I understand I owe you guys, to do a good job, and I'm here and I want to do that. But there are lines, right? Like,
Right.
I don't care that I'm salaried. There are lines. I don't owe you my life. This is not the military. I don't owe you my life. I
Exactly.
don't work for you 24/7. You know what I mean? You don't
Right.
pay me enough to work for you 24/7. So after everything kind of came to a head in my personal relationship with my husband, I was like, you know what? It's a lot easier to find another job than another soulmate. So I'm just going to go find another job.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we put everything back together over the next couple of years. So,
Well, I think that's fantastic that you even recognize that, because probably there are lots of couples out there who don't see that, and then they're not couples anymore, I'm sure. But it is important, I think, to make sure that your relationships don't suffer for your work. I mean, but
yeah.
being an entrepreneur is also like crazy weird off hours. Like I find myself working more probably now than I was before.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. And I do work a lot more now than I did when I was working a corporate job. But the difference is that at least I can choose when I work. So I make it a priority to have a monthly date night with my husband. So I'll either switch off with my sister or I'll call my sister-in-law and be like, hey, can you take Isabel for the day? I really need some time with your brother. And she's usually really good about coming to pick her up and keeping her out of our hair for the day. So I make sure we have our monthly date nights, and we have bigger picture stuff like our 10-year anniversary this summer. I'm planning a vacation for us to get away then too. And then we have our vow renewal in January. So I make it a priority to let him know You and I were a couple before we had a daughter and before I started this business, and none of that has changed. You are still just as important to me as you were when you were the only thing in my life. So I need you to know that. It's important for me that you know that. So I make sure that that's how it is, that he is always a priority in my life.
That's beautiful. You gave me chills saying that.
Most people say that when I talk about my husband.
I hope he truly appreciates how much you love him.
Most days, I think he does.
Most days, yeah. Have you ever, because I know that a lot, I mean, probably we all do this, kind of feel like you're not real, like a fear or like doubtful about this choice you've made to have your own business, where you just feel like, I just feel like ditching this dream, throwing in the towel, and just like go work for someone else again.
Yeah,
if you have, how do you get over that?
I have definitely been there, especially like in the last year with everything that was going on. I was like, man, I would give anything to have sick days and paid time off and all that stuff all over again. I do have those moments, I'm not gonna lie. And then I think back, really the only thing I need to do is to think back to what happened at my corporate job, where I basically told my boss I was getting ready to get a divorce and I needed some time off, and he couldn't even give me that. And I'm like, I lost 20 pounds in a year eating junk food and not exercising because I was so stressed out. And that didn't matter to him either. Like, my clothes were falling off my body. I didn't even realize it until one day I was like, wait, what? And my coworkers mentioned it too. They're like, dude, you're like wasting away. And again, I was eating junk all day, every day. So numbers wise, I should have been gaining weight, but my body was just, I was under so much stress that I was just losing so much weight. And so now I just think back to that and I'm like, as stressful as this can be, as uncertain as this is, it's totally worth it to be able to say when I'm having a rough day, you know what, I'm going to step away from this and take a break and take care of me, take care of my family, or to know that I have the choice to say, no, I don't want to work with this person who disrespects me. That's why I do this. So I can choose to surround myself with people that value me and value my talents and understand, you know, what it is that I do and why it's so important. Like, I have that choice. And so anytime I get tempted to go back to work, I'm like, all these things, all these choices, all the flexibility you have, all that goes away. And a paycheck just isn't worth that.
Right. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's nice to bring that back into perspective, right? Like, why did you start doing this to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and the fact is, everything has its pros and cons, right? And to me, all the pros of running my own business, it will always outweigh all the cons, especially because right now the biggest con is that I don't make enough money, but I can change that. I can implement more things. I can hustle a little harder. I can show up more, and eventually I will make more money. If I go back to a job, all those things that are wrong with that job will always be wrong with that job. So that's not a temporary thing. Those will always be boundaries that somebody else tells you what to do and when to show up and all that other stuff. Those will always be there. So it just makes more sense to find a way to make this work for me than to try and work for somebody else and fall into the same pattern of doing too much work for not enough money, not enough credit, and people expecting me to do 2 or 3 jobs because I can, but not paying me for it. So I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore.
I hear you. I was there. Yeah.
So I'm just like, every time I get tempted, I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that again. Forget it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously following your heart and doing what you're passionate about has definitely improved your personal life, like on a ton of levels from what you've covered, health, your relationships, everything. So yeah, definitely. I don't think there's one person I've talked to yet that said they would ever go back to corporate after doing, no matter how up and down entrepreneurship can be, they said, no, maybe a part-time job doing something like totally casual, but never full-time back to corporate. They just won't do it.
Yeah, no, never. And I mean, the thing is that the things that I used to enjoy doing in corporate, I can find in running my own business. So there's really no reason for me to ever go back.
Right.
like never ever.
Uh,
Especially during Christmas time. I'm like, oh my God. I remember when I was working fourth quarter and I was at the store until like 12 almost every night. It was exhausting. Or when we had a big visit from like the top corporate people, and I worked like 90 something hours in 1 week. My
oh my
longest day
God.
was like 17 hours
Oh my
that I
God.
was on my feet.
Ugh.
Um, and it was, oh my God, it was exhausting. By the time the day of the visit actually came, I was barely standing up because I had been on my feet for like so many hours that week. And I was salaried. It didn't matter how many hours I worked. But
Right.
yeah, I
That's
think
when
my
they get
paycheck,
you.
I think my paycheck was like I had 100 hours in 1 week. And I'm like, I don't even know
Ah,
how that's possible. Oh, because I was always here. So, it was really stressful. So now it's just like every time I look back on it, I'm like, you know what? I'm so much better off doing this thing, even if it takes a little bit longer because I have to pause every now and then to take care of my family. That is my priority. My family will always be my priority. So if
yeah.
this takes a little bit longer to build, that's so be it. Like it is what it is. Like I'm never gonna regret putting my family first or putting my health first or putting my relationship first because those are the things that matter the most to me. There can always be money made. Like my mom always told me, you can make more money, but there are some things in your life once you break them, you can't fix them again. So you need to
Yes.
focus on those things first because you can
Very,
always
very
make
true.
money.
Very true. Wise mom.
See, sometimes things stick through. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So someday our kids will repeat something that we said that was wise, right?
Yeah, here's hoping.
Yeah.
Here's hoping at least some of it seeps through. Yeah, that would be great. Even
Yeah.
if like
Well,
10% of it seeps through, that would be great.
that's right. The joys of parenthood. Uh, so you have a really cool free gift that you're giving to people who watch this. And I'll have
Yes.
a link to it on my site when I get it from you. But
Yes, that's actually done, so I can send that over to you later
okay,
today.
good. So we'll get it up there. But tell us about it because I think that this is like a really good thing to review when you want to redo your website.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of people that say, "Oh, I want to do like my website isn't working for me. I want to do something about it." And then I'll ask them like what, and they'll be like, "I don't know." And I was like, there are just certain things that you need to ask yourself before you even touch your website or before you talk to somebody about working with them because like there are people that will come to me and they're like, I want to hire you to do my website. And then I'll ask them questions about it and they'll be like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take your money because you're not ready. Like, you need to go back and really think through some of this stuff because there's no point in kind of rushing into this and then 2 months later being like, ugh, that sucks. That's not what I
Right.
wanted. That's not what I thought.
Right.
Or getting the whole site almost done and then being like, that's not it. And I was like, really? We were like almost ready to launch. And she said, no, that's not it. I'm like, oh my God, seriously? So, yeah, so I think it's really important to kind of think things through, like, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to do? And all that other stuff that I think people kind of are like, well, the person I hire will know all that. No, no, it comes from you. Like, I need you to know this stuff. If you need some guidance, I'm happy to kind of talk you through it. But you have no idea how many people come to me and they're like, I want you to build me a website. And when I say, okay, can you show me something that you like? They're like, I'm like, what am I supposed to design it based off of? Like, I need something. What do you like? Show me a website you like. Show me a website you don't like. Tell me what it is about it you do or don't like, and that'll go a long way. But it's like far too many people seem to think designers are mind readers. We're not.
Right.
And if you're not gonna like my work, like what good does it do to you? So you need to really sit down before you even think about talking to a designer. You need to kind of sit down and ask yourself those questions of what are you trying to achieve, what hasn't already worked, and all that other stuff. Because otherwise, you're just gonna spend so much more time than you have to trying to figure that out as you go along and changing this and changing that, rather than coming to the table being like, okay, I like this, I don't like this. I definitely needed to do X, Y, and Z. Like once you have all those questions answered, even if you don't know how to make them happen, that's my job. Like you might say, oh, I definitely wanted to look less corporate and more fun. You might not know what that looks like. I might be able to figure something out, but I still need you to give me something to work with.
Right.
Otherwise, I have one thing in my head, you have one thing in your head, and then something, and you're like, that's not what I meant. And the process just takes longer, and it's more frustrating, honestly, on both ends than if
Right.
you kind of sit there and think it through and have a plan and be like, okay, this is it. This is what I want, or I have a few ideas of what I want, and I need you to help me narrow them down. Even that's something, but I think far too many people just kind of rush into it, and then they're like, I don't like this. Of course you don't like it. You didn't put enough thought into it.
Right. Because it is, I mean, your website is a reflection of you. So
Mm-hmm.
it has to feel good. I mean, if you're going to go on your own website and go, like that's not even like me. That feels
Yeah.
like I don't even know who. That's like some stranger or something.
Yeah. And then you
That's
don't want
not
to
right.
share it, and then you don't ever want to promote yourself, and then what good does that really do you? You know what I mean? So I'm like, so I think, and I mean, obviously, some people like, of course, you say a website support. You're a website designer, and I mean, I'm sure that's true. I'm kind of biased, but even before I did this for a living, like websites are a huge part, if, especially when you do an online business. Like, how can you sit here and tell me your website isn't important? How can you sit here and tell me that you take your business seriously, but this clearly hasn't been updated in 2 years? Like, I'm not gonna hire you when your website doesn't look professional. And there's a line, right? Like maybe it doesn't look like top of the line, but it can still look professional. It's
Right.
unprofessional when everything looks outdated. It's unprofessional when you have broken links. It's unprofessional. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that aren't subjective. It's not subjective that when stuff doesn't work, people get frustrated and they leave. Like that's not subjective. That's what
Right.
happens. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So it's little things like that, or when you use blinding colors and people are looking at your website and they're like, I can't look at this for more than 2 seconds, and then they close out. Like all that is not subjective. Like there's things behind all those reasonings that you should be putting into your website when you're making these choices. So that's why you kind of have to consider all that before you make all these decisions. And again, even if you can't afford to hire somebody when you out the gate, and I would never actually suggest people drop $3,000 on a website when they're brand new because they don't have the clarity they need to really create a strong brand. You still need something presentable, like bare
Right.
minimum. You need something presentable. And some of the things that people throw up and they're like, "Look, it looks so great." I'm like, "No, it doesn't. It's terrible." And then you try to load it on mobile, and most people want your website on mobile now, and you everything's like massive, and they have a pop-up that won't close properly because it's not mobile responsive. And I'm like, these things are the
Right.
things you don't know because you decided to DIY without doing more research. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's just, I'm like, again, I'm not telling you need to hire a designer off the bat, but I'm saying maybe follow some blogs of designers. So when they tell you these are the mistakes you might be making, you can
Right.
look at your own website and be like, huh, am I making those mistakes?
Right.
Or when was the last time I updated my website? Or things like that. You know what I mean? Wait, is my website mobile friendly? No. How do I do that? Maybe I can hire someone to do that. Things
Right.
like that, you don't want to be driving away prospective clients because it's just too hard to use your website. And you'll never know how many people you lose because your website isn't working. You know what I mean? So it's just
Right.
all those things that you kind of need to consider to make sure that you have one that's working as hard for you as it could.
Good points. And I like that you said, that people don't have to hire a designer right off the bat. They can just be aware of
Mm-hmm.
things that aren't
Yeah.
working. Even, I mean, anybody has been to websites before that probably things weren't working. So if you just kind of take note of those and make sure that whatever annoyed you, you're not doing yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like just stop for a minute and be really, really honest with yourself. That last website that you went to that looked like it hadn't been updated in 2 years, would you really have hired that person? No. So you need to make sure you update your website. You know that last place you went to where you couldn't figure out how to buy and you left? Are you doing that to your own people? Like even those basic things, because when people ask me to review their websites, those are the same things I see over and over. Like this thing, you're asking people to click 5 times, or your navigation. You got clever with the labels, and I have no idea what's going on. Like all those things, it's basic stuff that you don't think about. So again, take it from your point of view. When you go somewhere, what annoys you? Don't do that. Like, start with that.
Don't do that.
Like, when you're ready, hire a professional. But until then, don't do all those things bother you when you're on someone else's website.
Exactly.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you've got a free ebook on 10 questions to ask yourself before you revamp your website. And there'll be a link to that on my website, which hopefully works, because now I'm like in a little bit of panic mode after talking to you. I do go and look at it on mobile. So, and your website is, share your website because I don't want to mess it up.
Oh,
spell it.
It's www.sytbiz.com.
Right.
So it's SYTBiz.com.
But not SI. So
yeah.
I'll make sure that was clear. Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing all this with me, and everybody else, because it's great tips, great insight to entrepreneurial world. And I know a lot of people really share your sentiments on family, putting family first, because that's a huge thing when you work in corporate America. Often, especially if you're a salaried employee, it's kind of expected that even though a lot of companies say that they've got that work-life balance thing,
they don't really care. Yeah. And actually, I remember I ran into somebody when I worked a temporary job a few years ago, and I ran into somebody that was like, she worked for a corporation for 20 years and then ended up quitting. And she basically went through what I went through for a year for 20 years. And she was like, I have massive respect for you to realize after only 1 year what it was doing to you and having the guts to walk away. She's like, it took me 20 years. And I woke up and I'm like, my kids are grown and I missed most of their childhood and I can't get that back. And so she was like, so I really respect the fact that you were able to be like, you know what? I deserve better than this. My kids deserve better than this. And to have the guts to walk away from that. And that's another thing that I also think back to now when I get frustrated and think about going back. I'm like, ugh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that 20 years from now.
Right. Yeah, because you can't get that time back.
No, you can't. Sometimes you wish you can. Sometimes you wish you'd skip it. But, most of the time, you kind of want it back.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You have a fantastic rest of your day. And we will certainly be in touch. And we'll get everything up here.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Let me find the button now because I minimized the screen. Okay. Oh, and go to CherriseBoucher.com, the Inspire View Series tab, and last year's interviews and this year's are on there. Thank you.